look for progress, not perfection, right? Because, you want to try and get incrementally better, but we often in our society expect that overnight success. And like nobody is ever that. What you don't see is the months or weeks or years of hard work that went in before. We just see the success and we go, well, they did it. Why can't I? And we put this crazy pressure on ourselves.
I'm married now, and we've been married going on 10 years. And this was it. This was the challenge. I mean, it was every relationship I ever had before this, personally. With women, it was you're always married to your phone, you're always married to your business. And I always said the same thing. I'm doing this for us. We want this wealth. This is the price of success, paid in full in advance. It's the hours I've got to put in to do this. And that was it. It was always that came first to the detriment of it. And I even put them in front of my mom, my dad, and family members, business first. And that was the way it showed up. And when I had that big shift, when my dad suddenly died, Memorial Day 2005, everything shifted. And it takes sometimes that a tragedy, or it takes a cataclysmic event in our lives to help us see something we didn't see before. And that was the big event for me. It was that. Wow. So, and since then, that was the worst day of my life. And now it's led to some of the best things that have happened, right? Turn that hardship into your success. And that was really it. That was the turning point. Yeah.
And that, I think, points to the point that I was just making. Like, you were open to hearing it. You could have just as easily gone to look at this terrible thing that happened, and it just proves that I got to keep doing the things that I'm doing, right? But what I'm making up there is, like, even when that happened and your dad passed, and like, I don't know anybody who would say, "Oh, my parents passing is a good thing," but you were able to look at it and go, "Okay, as terrible as this was, like, what does it mean to me, and how do I want to show up differently?" And so I think you were open to the lesson in it, even if it was hard. Like, and I never tell people it's easy. Sometimes it will be hard, and it's going to be worth it.
Yes. And so the part of the story is that I was 28 when that happened. And I wasn't able to get to a place of seeing things through others' lenses until I was 38. So it didn't happen like overnight at that moment.
It took some time. Yep.
It took 10 years later. Then it's like I woke up one day. I was like, man, I'm a highly functioning workaholic.
Right.
I'm a recovering perfectionist. My dad died of working hard and stress because of that. And he was doing great on so many standards. Except for his own.
The external standards of success, he was doing it, right? And as Dr. Phil would say, and how's that working for you?
Yeah, it led him to his grave early, and that worst day, worst experience, it's led to this learning that I don't want to go to the grave early to the best of my ability. So that's why I coach recovering perfectionists and highly functioning workaholics to keep things simple and be present. And so, and I sense this energy about you that you're like cool and comfortable in the moment.
It's funny you say that, because I was listening to your conversation with Andrew Miller recently, and there was a term you used that I love. Progress. No, perfection. No, practice makes progress. Not practice makes perfection. And that really hit home, because I use a similar term. I say, look for progress, not perfection. Right? Because you want to try and get incrementally better, but we often in our society expect that overnight success. And like nobody is ever that. What you don't see is the months or weeks or years of hard work that went in before. We just see the success and we go, well, they did it. Why can't I? And we put this crazy pressure on ourselves. But I'm going on a tangent.
Well, let's go to your podcast. I mean, Vulnerable Man podcast. When did you start that, and why is that the title? Why that podcast?
Yeah. So the short answer, like I said, I've been interviewing men since 2015. And I started with just like 5 or 6 questions centered around vulnerability. And in particular, what gets in the way of vulnerability for them with other men. And it was to help me understand kind of how other men thought about it. And I talked to men from all walks of life, all sexual orientations, different ethnic, cultural, race, like you name it. And as I talked with them, one of the common themes was a lot of the reasons that men weren't vulnerable on other men is there was shame or there was fear of judgment. Like those were the 2 core groups of things. And I would often say, so if a good buddy of yours shared something he was struggling with, how would you feel? And almost every guy would say something effective like, I'd have so much respect for him, or I'd feel proud, or I'd appreciate that he trusted me with it. Things along those themes. And then I'd say, and so for you, if you're vulnerable, you think people are going to judge you. And then I'd sit back and I'd hear the gears turning, and all of a sudden the light bulb would come on. And a lot of the times what it was is we were telling ourselves these stories that vulnerability in me is a weakness, but vulnerability in someone else is a strength. And so as I was having these conversations, I realized I love that I'm being able to help some of these men discover their journey along the path, but I'm talking one-on-one. And if I really want to create a bigger impact and help shift the narrative, I need to do something different. And so I said, all right, I'm going to start a podcast. And that was a very vulnerable act because I knew nothing about podcasts. So I had to practice what I preach. And I leaned into my community and said, I don't know anything about a podcast, but I want to start one. Anybody can help me? And I was very fortunate that, again, somebody in my community said, I've been podcasting since it was a thing. Let me help you out. And he took me under his wing and helped me get all that together. And it all came to me, the idea of the podcast. I was interviewing a man. It was a Monday morning in May. I don't remember which May it was in 2020, but I said, I need to do a podcast. And so July of that year, it launched. The reason I chose The Vulnerable Man is partially because that's part of who I'm trying to be in the world. And I also wanted something that might have people go, what? Because often men think of vulnerability as a 4-letter word that you don't say in mixed company. And so I also wanted to bust that myth. And really, it's about the goal of destigmatizing the word vulnerability for men so that we can be in better relationship with ourselves and others and be a solution to what ails the world.